Today I'm trying something similar to what I've done before, but a little bit different. I'm pulling up images from a particular assignment. I'm going to go through them. I'm going to break down the images, talk to you guys, sort of critique myself, and hopefully you guys can learn something along the way, and it's a little trip down memory lane for me. So today I pulled up images from an assignment I shot in, let's see, oh my God, this was a long time ago. I shot this for the New York Times very early on in my career, based here in Vietnam, 2011. Oh my goodness, very early on in my career. And I shot this in Myanmar. And at the time, it was very difficult to get access or even to go into Myanmar. It was quite risky. I remember having friends going there who were like sharing a laptop because they didn't want to look like photographers. So they would like share equipment and pull equipment and go there and shoot. So this was a travel story, but you couldn't go there without sort of being attached to a travel agency, which is not what I wanted. I needed to see the country from a traveler's perspective because this was for the travel section of the New York Times, but not go with a big travel group. We found a travel agency that would kind of fake it for me and pretend I was going on a group tour, and instead I just went with a fixer, a translator, and he just took me all around to the places I needed to see based on what the writer wrote about. But I also had a lot of freedom back then, particularly for this assignment, to sort of capture it as I saw it, of course, in the similar locations that he wrote about. So I'm pulling up the images now. Let's see, I remember this being sort of like a 5 or 6 day assignment. I can give you the equipment I shot with. That was with the Canon 5D Mark II. I can see I had a 16 to 35. Ooh, I didn't like using that lens too much. I had a 35. And I shot a lot. I shot in Bagan. I shot in Yangon. I shot in Inle Lake. I traveled all over. And so my translator was essentially my fixer and my guide to everything I needed to capture. And I remember going there with minimal gear, because again, I was afraid of getting in trouble there. Overall, I was looking for little slices of life, the way that a tourist might see Yangon if they were allowed to go there on one of these group tours. But again, if I went with a group tour, I'd be like stuck and limited to like how long they want to spend at places. And for me, if something's working, I just say that for hours. Something's not working, even if it's a monument, famous place, I still need to get going if I can't get any good pictures there. So I'm going to pull up some of the images here. I can see it was quite fruitful going to a temple. That was one of my go-to moves back then, is go to a local temple, a temple that tourists wouldn't go to, and just sort of hang out. And it was pretty easy back then. I just sort of show up and kind of talk my way in and just start taking pictures of everyday life and just linger and hang out and watch them as the monks would eat there, as they would pray, as they would study, as they would go about their sort of daily life. And I would just shoot. I remember this picture being quite happy with it because this room was rather interesting. So this picture has these nice layers. These two monks were sort of hanging out. I was talking to them a little bit and then just had this back layer of that monk there by the curtain. And that was actually after I took this shot, which I liked maybe even more, of the silhouette of this monk when he was putting up the curtain. I love the colors there. I love the silhouette. And it just worked out really well. So this one, I remember trying to work this. There was a monk studying there. The robes were everywhere. I was trying to use layers to shoot through, see what kind of textures I can shoot through, but it's really hard because it was like, they were quite thick. And I remember this one being like probably a little, I liked it, but a little too abstract for the New York Times. This one failed. I remember playing around. This was shot at f/22, had some dust on my lens a little bit there. Just playing around with what I can get, because when I shot at like 1.4, it wasn't quite working. I couldn't get the texture and the subject. And this was my favorite balance here. I was able to frame this monk through a little pattern in the fabric there, and you could see him studying, you could see an outline enough of him that it kind of worked for me. So this was one of my favorite images. Not published. Most of the time my favorite images don't get published, but and so the way I would work, just give you guys some insight for this, New York Times would call me, see if I'm available. I'd agree to the assignment, agree to a certain amount of days. They might say, hey, can you do this in 3 days? And I might say, are you out of your mind? These are like 3 different locations. Give me 5 days or 6 days. Sometimes they're open to that, sometimes not. And I'm always, like, of course you want more days because it's more money, but I'm always trying to be fair. And like, what do I need to really go into a location and not just like pop up, take a camera and shoot. I want time to look around, to wait for moments, to wait for the good light, to actually be able to compose an image in an interesting way, not be rushed. It's not always the case, but the New York Times, at least back then, was always good to me in that way and gave me the time. So I went to a lot of tourist locations. I remember here, Inle Lake, and getting sort of touristy shots and not being stoked with this because I just saw like everyone else has these type of shots of these guys on those little fishing boat. And, it wasn't working great for me because they like think these are the shots you want because a lot of photographers go there and like set up shots like this. Not mentioning any names, but there's a lot out there. But I got a little moment like this. Two monks just rowing by me, like a little light in the water, like that he was like it was hot and he was covering himself with his robe. It's a nice little slice of life. I mean, I feel like when I shoot for the New York Times, when I shoot for anyone, I'm looking beyond the touristy images, which are hard because you go to these touristy places and a lot of times they think you want these type of images, so they sort of flock around you, or translators and fixers have worked with photo groups that like want this kind of stuff. So it's always like I have to untrain people to like just be themselves and just let things happen naturally. And I believe in that. I believe you'll get more beautiful pictures and more unique pictures, and when I'm shooting for the New York Times, more honest pictures, which is what I have to do. It's my job as a photojournalist, even for the travel section. What else? I'm just sort of clicking through little moments here. I can see a lot of my flaws here. Here's a little shot of the bus going by. I liked all the drawings on the bus. I found that interesting. I was very lucky early on in my career. I could just sort of I would shoot what the writer talked about, but I also allowed myself time to just explore and shoot what I thought related to the story, but what I also found interesting and where my instincts would take me. And often they were correct, and often my editors liked that and they encouraged that. And that honestly isn't always the case. But for you guys to shoot out there for yourselves, you don't have to listen to an editor. You don't have to please them. So you can follow your heart. You can follow your instincts. And so I encourage you to do so. Here's some more images, things that just didn't work. I remember shooting here, the light was too harsh, ladies looking right at the camera, something I would critique my students on. I was trying to get the silhouette because I love that green color there. This was in a market, I believed, in Yangon, and just trying to get the silhouette perfect, but it just didn't quite work. I stayed there for a while, I remember that. Again, for these travel stories, I'm looking for human elements, everyday life. I'm looking for color and details and architecture about the location, cultural things. So since it's a Buddhist country, I'm going to temples and pagodas. I'm hanging out. I'm going to the tourist locations. I'm going to markets. Markets are always fruitful, especially back then when they weren't flooded with tourists. They weren't tainted by tourists. So I'm always doing my best to put myself in the best situation. So that's getting up early, shooting in really good light early in the morning, shooting in good light in the afternoon, trying to make the best of it if I'm in a place in bad light, because I still want to shoot a full day. I remember this dappled light in the afternoon here at this pagoda, and the monks were hanging out there in the dappled light, and the light was just so nice on the little kid's eyes there, and I just stayed and waited and got a couple frames in there. And then I remember going out in the harsh light. The monks were playing in this little area here. I think I turned this picture in with a crooked horizon, sort of a rookie mistake there, but I did, and they actually published this image. I can't remember if they actually corrected the horizon or not, but I liked this. It was hot out. The monks were playing. It's this little sandy area. They were running around, playing tag. And yeah, that's just one of those situations where just being there, waiting, getting them so bored with me that they go back to doing what they were doing. Because when I first arrived, they were super interested in me and wanted to look at the back of my camera. That was new then. Again, this is 2011. So yeah, overall it was a nice mix. I'll just end with some of my favorite shots from the trip. I'll show you those. Took a lot of bad shots, always do on every single shoot because I work every single scene. Tried to get a nice mix of just daily life, things that the writer had mentioned, certain temples that were famous, certain landmarks that were famous. Also just allowing myself to see the country as a person that's new there, as an outsider, and just sort of that's what you're doing for a travel story. How would I see it? How would someone else might see it a little bit differently, but this is how I would see it. I'm going to go to a lot of the places that they're going to mention. I'm going to capture how I see it. I want that to be as authentic and genuine as possible. So, not setting things up, not taking the pictures that everyone else is taking, not even looking at other pictures that most people have taken, because I want a fresh outlook here. I want to deliver something different. I want to be me, and I want to be present when I'm there. And I think I did a pretty good job. I know a lot of things I can improve on, sure, but for a young photographer early on in my career, going to a country that, even though I'm doing a light travel story, it was still quite dangerous at the time. And people were getting arrested, people were getting kicked out, and we had to be really sneaky. But it's a beautiful country. I'd like to go back. I went back several other times for different stories. Haven't been back in a while. Last time I was there to do a story about elephant collaring for the Smithsonian a few years back, but I haven't been back recently. I'd like to go explore. I'd like to go shoot for me. It's a big thing for me now in my career. I've visited so many places and got to do so many unique things and photograph so many stories, but it was always someone else's story. I'd like to go back and revisit a lot of these places and see it exactly how I want to see it. This story, I got to see it pretty close to how I want to see it, but I'd like to go to other places and dive deeper into some of these stories and spend some more time. But I do my best in every one of these stories to get some depth, to capture everyday moments, and to be as authentic as possible. Hope you guys enjoyed this. This was different, nothing scripted. I just pulled up the images, talked about them, and recorded it. I don't know if people can like this. Maybe not. Maybe it's boring for you guys. We'll see. Don't forget to check out my online store at askmott.com. I've got online classes, mentorship program. I've got openings for my workshop in Northern Vietnam in December this year. A few openings left. Check all that out in the description box below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to have a wonderful day.